guys, we're back.
Yes.
And this one has been long overdue. And we have told you guys before that the owner for the video had taken the video down. So that's the reason why we have never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked if you wanted for me to show Cyn, the one that I've done, and you guys agreed because she needs to see this video.
I do.
The Britains Crusade Against Slavery. I have seen it before. She has never. So she will be reacting to the video that I have done because that's the only way for her to view the videos on persons who have reacted to it. So I said, why not just choose mine? All right. So here you go. It was long overdue and here it is. So
yes.
The link will be in the description below if you want to go over and watch it undisturbed over on my channel.
What? Don't listen to this mad woman.
No, seriously, because they can't find it anywhere else.
Yeah, they can't.
And when I said it out loud, I'm like, okay, it is. I am right. Yes, they say you must give whosoever you're getting the source from credit. I'm giving myself credit. Woo!
Okay, Zee.
So I'm not, yeah. I'm giving myself credit too, guys. If you want to watch it on Disturb, or if you haven't seen it yet on my channel, the link will be in the description below. Go over and show that girl some love. Me.
Go show some love.
All right, we're chatting too much. All right, guys. Without further ado, let's get in. We'll do our best to edit this as best as possible without you hearing me chatting and yapping. Okay, guys?
I'm getting nervous. Just like,
you getting nervous?
I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect.
This
I'm
is
excited,
a good one.
nervous. My tummy's feeling very funny right now.
Oh wow!
Yeah, all these emotions. Yeah.
This one, I think you're gonna get it. Okay. Here we go. Right about now.
Britain's criminally stupid attitudes to race and immigration are beyond parody. By Frankie Boyle. For those who aren't aware, Frankie Boyle is a famous Scottish comedian who is most renowned for being pretty damn offensive. Needless to say, I'm a fan of his. And so when Frankie Boyle writes an article for The Guardian of all places with the subtitle, "The anti-immigration election rhetoric is perverse. We fear the arrival of people we have drawn here with the wealth we stole from them," I can see the misinformation coming a mile away. So Frankie begins the article by waffling in an overly verbose manner, reminiscent of Charlie Brooker, another man who I am a fan of, but has been led astray by misinformation. And it's full of these sort of contradictions that I'm sure sounded good when he was writing them, but when you actually think about it, are rather silly. I mean, here he is pointing out the irony of the leaders being nationalist and warning about the Scottish National Party after making a crack about how the Scottish discovered penicillin and taking credit for this for some reason. And for some reason, he seems to mix up the concepts of trade and immigration. But these really aren't very important. I'm not even bothered that he just assumes that an Australian-style point system for immigration will obviously be a racist system that caters exclusively to white people. You know, this is despite the fact that a Cambridge economics professor has warned the sheer scale of immigration has caused problems for the UK's infrastructure, which was largely built in the 70s. But you know what? None of that really bothers me. What really bothers me is Frankie Boyle's attempt to make British people feel ashamed of Britain's involvement in the slave trade.
Yeah. Wow.
That really gets my goat, because Britain's involvement in the slave trade is one of the most proud accomplishments of British history. And I know what you're thinking. Oh my goodness, slavery is bad. And that's correct. Which is why the British ended it. For everyone. If we just...
Oof. So you see my reaction as to why I'm like, huh? Mm-hmm. Why would you say that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it said British Crusade Against Slavery. Because I was like, okay, so why would you say something? What is something that they need to be ashamed of? I don't know the full detail yet, but I was like, oh, wow. This is... You're being a little bit nasty here.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, I think it's like the lack of information and knowledge, because I didn't know that British ended slavery. I did not know that. The lack of that knowledge, you would Like, I didn't know that. So I would be like him too. I'm like, why are you guys refusing immigrants? You know, why are you guys doing this? Given your past, well, you still live in the other, like, the country and stuff like that. But then given the fact that they did end slavery, and then that also, like, you know, in a sense, send that effect to other countries, that's amazing.
This is not it. Let's hear more.
Let's hear more? Okay.
Yeah. Let's continue.
It's not funny.
Yeah.
Well, let's continue.
Take a cursory look at the subject. You can see how it is not nearly as cut and dried as Frankie makes it out to be. Even the very word slave comes from Slav, because of the sheer number of Slavs taken as slaves by conquering peoples. But Frankie is trying to drum up white guilt. So let's talk about African slavery. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to start exploring the West African coast, and they did indeed capture African natives to be brought back to Portugal as items of curiosity. Europeans who travelled to Western Africa discovered that Western Africa had civilizations of its own. For example, a Dutch visitor to Benin City wrote in around 1600, "As you enter it, the town appears very great. You go into a great broad street, not paved, which seems to be 7 or 8 times broader than the Warmost Street in Amsterdam. The houses in this town stand in good order, one close and even with the other, as the houses in Holland stand." More than
Sorry, let me continue.
a century earlier, Benin exchanged ambassadors with Portugal. The Portuguese did take a few Africans back to Europe, but they didn't need to set up operations because they discovered that there were already thriving slave trades in Africa.
When he said about how the guy from Amsterdam, when he was writing about how, you know, like how civilized Africa was, I'm so proud of that. That made me smile, because oftentimes people think and truly believe, not all, but a lot of people do believe and think that slaves were very dumb. They were uncivilized. They had nothing going on. They were saved. Some people think like that. Some people really do. So just to know that even back then in the 1600s, they're like, yes, the roads are not like concrete. It's not paved through. It's like dirt road, but they're civilized. They have houses, there's schools, they have like this going on. It made me feel so proud when he said that.
Aww.
It really did. It really, I'm like,
Coming from an African.
Yes, I'm an African. That's
So
why.
that's why she's like,
I feel so proud to hear that.
And it's crazy because when you think about it, it's like, okay, you're part of civilization as you see it. It's your norm.
Yep.
For them, it's their norm.
It's
their way of doing stuff. So not because you think it's not civilized doesn't mean it's not.
Exactly.
If you see what I'm going with it. Yeah, so I don't get why people always do say, oh, they're so uncivilized.
No, it's their way.
It's their way.
Exactly. Well said, Cindy.
And so they bought slaves from African rulers and traders. The vast majority of slaves taken out of Africa were sold by African rulers, traders, and military aristocracy who grew wealthy from the business.
And that's the sad truth. I'm very passionate about this. Yeah. Because, like it touches you because it's back home and you just see the ripple effect it has on the whole entire Black community. You just see you just see the ripple effect of this whole entire slave trade. And the worst thing is, it was your own people that sold you off. It was not it
got me so mad. And then they keep pointing the finger at the white man. And that's what triggered me in this video. Because I didn't know this information. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because I was like, I literally thought growing up that white people went out in the slaves, they went to Africa and they literally hunt them down. Until I learned that.
But funny enough, we were brainwashed that way though.
Yes.
If you stop to think about it.
Yes.
Because that's what I'm like, oh, the white man did this. The white man did that. You did not hear, oh, your brothers did that.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, you're all brothers and sisters. That's how I see it.
And when I found out there was our own, I was so hard. I'm like, why? All because of the money. The gold, the spices, the weapons. Like, for your own brother, you're a whole nother human? Sorry, we're yapping, but... Yeah.
Most slaves were acquired through wars or by kidnapping. And before you start thinking that this is excessively barbaric, this was the standard for almost every civilized society all across the world. For example, in ancient Greece, Strabo tells us that the island of Delos trafficked in 10,000 slaves
Jesus.
a day, even before the Roman Empire. Even when we're coming to the end of the Roman Republic in the 1st century BC, it's estimated that a third of Italy was made up of slaves.
Woo!
Slaves made up of people whom the Romans had conquered and taken back to Italy to do hard labor.
Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's a
Okay.
huge percent. I did not know. That's new information to me.
It's crazy how many people were being enslaved, but it was focused more on the Black community, if you
Mhm.
notice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't realize there were slaves outside of that is not of the Black
Mm-hmm.
race. This video opened my eyes. That's all I can say. Let's
Yep.
continue.
And so, to anyone even slightly educated on this subject, it is absolutely unsurprising to find that, for example, in 1510, the capital of the Empire of Songhai was teeming with slaves. Slave trading in West Africa was common, but it was different to what you expect. It wasn't for commercial purposes, it was to show status and to give the wealthy African elite a comfortable life. And with the appearance of
To give the wealthy African elite a better life. Did he just really say that?
And
Wow.
with the appearance of Europeans desperate to buy slaves for use in the Americas, the character of African slave ownership changed.
Okay.
Indeed, it did. The character of slavery on the west coast of Africa changed to look a lot more like the character of slavery on the east coast of Africa, because we're going to talk about the Arab slave trade, specifically the circumstance of Swahili-speaking peoples.
Okay.
Unsurprisingly, the Arabs, being far closer to sub-Saharan Africa than the Europeans, had been taking advantage of it for far longer. They were a people with as much commercial nous as anyone else. The ruling class of coastal Swahili society, sultans, government officials, and wealthy merchants, used non-Muslim slaves as domestic servants and to work on farms and estates. And they even had plantations, such as the Omani Sultan Said Said, who became immensely rich when he started up clove plantations in the 1820s with slave labor. Arab Muslims settled along the coast and intermixed with the locals, forming a people and culture known as Swahili, which started in around the 10th century AD. So, unsurprisingly, the East Africa slave trade was well established long before Europeans arrived on the scene and was driven by demands for labor by the sultanates of the Middle East. You might be thinking, well, that's interesting. If the Arabs had been in Africa for about 1,000 years, taking sub-Saharan African slaves, why isn't there a very large population of black people in Arabia?
Yeah.
That is true.
When he said that, I'm like, why not?
Mm-hmm. Why not?
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think, don't it?
It does.
I'm like, you're right. Because they were doing it hard, so how come?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is that the Arabs used to castrate them, cock and balls entirely.
Oh.
Did he just say?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's cozy. That just got tears in my eyes. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, why? How could you be so cruel to another human being? How could I just can't. I am like lost for words. Like, wow.
I'm sitting here watching this again because I told myself I'm not even gonna look back at this video. I know the truth now, but it's so painful to listen to. I know it's the past. People, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It is the past, but it still hurts.
It really hurts.
I'm sorry.
It's just so painful.
And I know showing you this video, I know it's gonna hit.
But it's good for me to know.
Yeah.
I need to know my history. I need to know what I need to be aligned. I can't be always dumb and like, I don't know what happened. I need to know.
But yeah.
Jeez, that's cold. That's disgusting.
Okay.
Practice that was supposed to have ended in 1962 when slavery was finally outlawed in places like Saudi Arabia. This, of course, does not mean that the trade has actually stopped. It is still going on today. It's impossible to know exactly how many slaves the Arabs took from sub-Saharan Africa on the east coast, but one historian produced a total of 17 million slaves.
Jesus, why so many?
Yeah.
That is a lot of people, guys. It's not 17,000. It's 17 million. That is like a whole country and more. That is a lot.
Doubt it was that high, but again, we can't know. And it was for over 1,000 years that this was happening. The point is that slavery was ubiquitous. No matter where on earth you traveled, you found slaves. In Europe, in China, in the Middle East, in the New World, in India, in Scandinavia, in Africa. Slavery was as common an institution as animal husbandry. The only thing that separated the Christian nations of Western Europe from anyone else on earth was the efficiency with which they could transport taken slaves.
So you're telling me it was...
Wow. I see Portugal is like number one. Portugal was huge in exporting slaves, bringing them back into other countries. Like, wow, and selling them? Jeez. And you see Britain's like all the way down there. All the way down. So crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And it should come as no surprise that this was made possible by advances in technology that the rest of the world simply didn't have. The most common number I could find regarding the total number of slaves taken from Africa by Europeans was 11 million, and that is in about a 400-year time span. Portugal took the most slaves, with over 4.5 million transported to the New World. Then Britain with over 2.5 million, then Spain and France totaling just under 3 million. And just so no one is under any illusions, the transatlantic slave trade must have been close to hell on earth. Slaves were taken from Africa and packed into conditions so disgraceful and disgusting, it is unsurprising that there was such a high mortality rate for the crossing. As offensive as this is to look at, we have to remember that this is a consequence of dehumanization. The slaves were not people, they were chattel.
Yep. Like you said, we were objects. We were just chattels. We were not humans. We were just seen as machines to get things done, basically. It's crazy. We're like sardines packed in that boat. And this is for months. Long voyages, like long travel distance for months. People puke in the same place, vomiting, and I can't imagine the smell alone. No wonder people didn't survive.
And there's nothing you can do.
No.
You're just there.
Dan, if you jump off the sea, you can't. You won't survive. But it's like, do you prefer staying here or do you want to jump off?
Take your chances, huh?
Exactly. A lot of people did that too. And I think I commented this before. I remember in history, our teacher said, we watched this, like a video similar to this. Basically, the way, I can't remember how I'm going to word this, but just see if you try to get what I'm trying to say here. Basically, the way the sharks were eating, I'm saying this so properly, it just basically changed how the movement of sharks across the ocean. Because they were going a certain way, but given the amount of bodies that are being dumped over the ship, it just changed the direction how they were going. If I'm wording that correctly, but I hope you guys are getting what I'm trying to say here. Basically, sharks are falling. There are so many dead bodies that were being tossed over onto the sea that it changed the direction the way the sharks were going. Because they were following the dead bodies. And when I heard that, I'm like, that's a lot of bodies. That's a lot to change of how the direction of the way sharks were going in the ocean. That's a lot.
Just like paper, like nothing. Another man that is like you, that bleed the same way you bleed, use the bathroom the same way you do, and you don't see them as anything but as Yeah.
It will obviously come as absolutely no surprise that the driving motivation behind slavery was economic. Portuguese merchants traded with Africans from trading posts they set up along the coast. They exchanged items like brass and copper bracelets for such products as pepper, cloth, beads, and slaves, all part of an existing internal African trade.
Okay.
But the transatlantic slave trade really took off when Christopher Columbus discovered the New World.
Yeah.
The Portuguese initially had a monopoly on the slave trade, but this was broken in the 16th century when England, followed by France and other European nations, entered the trade. Unsurprisingly, this was a massively profitable trade for everyone involved except the slaves. Africa's rulers, traders, and military aristocracy protected their interest in the slave trade. They discouraged Europeans from leaving the coastal areas to venture to the interior of the continent. European trading companies realized the benefit of dealing with African suppliers and not unnecessarily antagonizing them. The companies could not have mustered the resources it would have taken to directly capture the tens of millions of people shipped out of Africa. It was far more sensible and safer to give Africans guns to fight in the many wars that yielded captives for trade. The slave trading network stretched deep into Africa's interior. Slave trading firms were aware of their dependency on African suppliers, and these African suppliers were making insane amounts of money.
All that money in the world, what are you going to do with all that money? All that money, what are you going to do with it?
And, okay, I'm not saying it's right, but just hear me. Follow me out on this little limb that I'm going to go. You're making all this money. You're leaving all these women, majority of these women and these kids fatherless. And they're leaving them kidless, husbandless. The men are being robbed from these villages. Why you couldn't give them some of the money? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm approving of what they're doing,
Yeah,
but I'm like, you're
saying.
making all this money off of our men, trading our men. Okay, give something back, because you're taking my child, you take my spouse, and you give them away for all different stuff. Hand me back something then for my grief and my pain. You're not going to soothe it, but hand me something.
I get what you're saying.
Not that I'm gonna want it, but at least the thought crossed your mind to give me something.
I get what you're saying. I totally get where you're coming from. But they didn't do it. They did not care. It was just so cold and so messed up.
Jesus.
Look at the amount of money they were making per year selling people in 1750. 250,000 U.
That's a lot back then, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Even today.
The condition that they travel, look like they were packed like they were in sardine tins, the way where they were packed together. Oh God.
For example, the King of Benin was making £250,000 a year selling people into slavery in 1750. And his successor said in the 1840s that he would do anything the British wanted him to do, apart from giving up the slave trade.
This is what turned me. Imagine you've made so much, and you think it's so hard to let that go. But you make all this money, you know, and you say, listen, I'll give you anything else, as long as I can keep the slave trade going. Can you imagine that? Hard. Let me not get
super heartless,
extra flustered and mad about this crap. I just can't. The love of money, man.
Yes, it's too much. It's too much.
Quote, "The slave trade is the ruling principle of my people. It is the source and the glory of their wealth. The mother lulls the child to sleep with notes of triumph over an enemy reduced to slavery. With an industry so profitable to so many people involved, and so widespread as to be common to almost every nation on earth, why would the British want King Gezo to give up the slave trade? Well, we need to turn back the clock to 1066 and the Battle of Hastings, when a French-speaking Duke of Viking descent called William the Bastard defeated King Harold Godwinson of England. William the Bastard was refashioned as William the Conqueror and took the crown of England. And one of the first things he did as King of England was to have the entire country inventoried. This record was known as the Domesday Book, and we still have it.
Okay.
Thanks to this hard work, we know that around 1086, 10% of the recorded population of England were slaves. 20 years earlier, when he had first conquered England, William had enacted a series of laws, one of which prohibited the slave trade out of England. I prohibit the sale of a man by another outside of the country on pain of a fine paid in full to me.
Wow.
No, that
I didn't know that. And that's like a 1068?
No. So now when you think about him, like, my hat's to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he was a king, but he had a heart.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this? He had a heart. You understand me? I'm like, he didn't see them as material gain. He didn't see not but monetary gain.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's crazy to me. And this was like back then, 1068. I think that's when he said the date. And it's just like a lot to process. I'm still in the 17 million in castration. Like, it's a lot to process with this video.
Yeah.
But let's continue to see what's. Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Some form of. Oh God, I don't even know what word to use. My whole tummy's hurting.
We don't know what William's motivation for making this law was, but given that the punishment for breaking it was a fine, I doubt it was for humanitarian reasons. Whatever his reasons, within a generation of 1086, slavery had almost died out in England, presumably because William the Conqueror had outlawed the trade of slaves. There appears to also have been a trend for lords to endow their slaves to perform their ploughing functions as free ploughmen. While not a wonderful state of affairs, serfdom is better than chattel slavery, and this state of affairs was solidified by the Church at the Synod of Westminster in 1102, where the Church denounced simony, clerical marriages, and slavery. This made England a very unique case. There probably wasn't another country in the world at this time that had outlawed slavery.
Yeah.
There were practically no motivations to do so.
Wow.
It was incredibly lucrative, endemic to the point of normalcy, so it wasn't even viewed as immoral, and the chances are William the Conqueror himself made the slave trade in England illegal just so he could make a quick buck. Fast forward 700 years, and the international transatlantic slave trade is in full swing, and yet we still do not have slaves in England. And this is where we meet a man named Granville Sharp, a very well-educated, rationalist thinker of the Enlightenment, who became an active campaigner for the abolition of the slave trade. Granville had had previous legal success defending Jonathan Strong from his erstwhile slave master after being brought to England from the colonies, but we're going to look at the subsequent Somerset case. James Somerset was a slave from Virginia in America who had come to England with his master Charles Stuart in 1769 and had run away in October 1771. After evading slave hunters employed by Stuart for 56 days, Somerset had been caught, put onto the slave ship Anne and Mary to be taken to Jamaica and sold. 3 Londoners had applied to Lord Mansfield for a writ of habeas corpus, which had been granted, with Somerset having to appear at a hearing on the 24th of January in 1772. Members of the public responded to the plight by sending money to pay for his lawyers, who in any event gave their services pro bono publico, while Stuart's costs were met by the West Indian planters and merchants. Given his prior legal experience with the Jonathan Strong case, Sharp...
Are you serious?
Yeah.
This is...
Strong case, Sharp briefed Somerset's lawyers. The judgment was delivered on the 22nd of June 1772, and it was a clear victory for Somerset, Sharp, and the lawyers who had acted for Somerset. Mansfield acknowledged that English law did not allow slavery, and only a new Act of Parliament could bring it into legality. The verdict established one thing very clearly. A slave becomes free the moment he sets foot on English soil. And this was, according to Lord Mansfield, that the air of England is too pure for any slave to breathe. No matter what reason William the Conqueror outlawed slavery for, by the time this judgment was drawn by Lord Mansfield, it had become a point of principle. This precedent wasn't set for Mansfield's personal interests. This precedent was set to determine right from wrong. Granville Sharp went on to co-found the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade with fellow like-minded Enlightenment thinkers. And after 20 long years of campaigning in Parliament, which I won't detail here, they were successful in their goal of abolishing the international slave trade in 1807. Now, if you know anything about 1807, you'll know...
Look how many...
That just feels good.
It does. It warms my heart.
It's like, they're like, listen, this is it. Anyone touches that, you bring here, they're not a slave.
Period.
And like he said, we don't know why he decided to make that law, But to me, it doesn't matter because he made it.
Yep.
And once their foot touch on that soil, the breeding fresh, they're considered a free man.
Yep.
It just warms my heart to hear them, like somebody with a heart.
Yeah.
And then when you hear the story of him being represented, people are like, we'll pay for it. We'll help to pay. And then they're like, law is like, no, we'll do this one pro bono. I'm like, to me, they saw him. That's how they'll see themselves.
Yes.
And not feeling as if they were higher than him. You know what I mean? And that right there. And I'm so grateful for Britain.
Yes.
Because you keep hearing, oh, how much they had to do with the slave trade. Oh, this, oh, that. Okay. We're not saying that they didn't do anything. But they stopped it.
Yep.
That's what I'm proud of. And I don't know why they don't teach us in school.
I don't know why either.
Because
I don't know.
Like I said, in this video, it's not a matter of naive, but it's like, I just didn't know.
You didn't
this
know?
wasn't taught in school to me.
No.
And sometimes you hear people say, how could you not know this? You think
I know everything?
Not only that, each country focuses on what they want to teach in school.
People don't
about
get
their country's
People
history.
don't get that.
You hit the nail on the head. That's what a lot of people don't understand. You think they're going to sit here and tell us, oh, Britain ended them? No, they're who's from America. They're going to tell them American history.
Yes.
I born and bred in Jamaica for majority of my life. It's not British history learning. We learn about
your country. And that makes sense.
And our heroes.
Yes, that makes sense. People don't get that.
So I am proud. Well, I dub myself as someone. I do. I dub myself. Well, they have dubbed me and I've taken it. I'm a Britain person. I'm from the UK. But that warms my heart, guys.
Yeah.
It does.
Years it took. I'm happy it finally happened, but look how long it took. Huh? Wow.
You'll know that this was during the War of the Fourth Coalition, where Napoleon Bonaparte was savaging great powers all across the European continent. The Napoleonic Wars led to new territorial acquisitions for Britain and helped stuff Parliament with more abolitionists than they had before, which is why the bill providing for the abolition of the slave trade to conquered territories triumphantly passed in both houses. And the following year this was superseded by a stronger measure that outlawed the British Atlantic slave trade altogether. But, given the raging war in Europe, it was rather difficult to enforce due to a paucity of available resources. after 1807, the Society for the Abolition of the Slave Trade, having achieved its goals, became the African Institution, whose principal aim was to ensure the new legislation was enforced and that other countries followed Britain's example. Persuading other countries to join Britain outlawing the slave trade proved more difficult. Despite the efforts of the African Institution and those of British ministers, the Congresses of Paris and Vienna in 1814 and 1815 both failed to reach a specific agreement. Given that this was at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, it's hardly surprising that there was French opposition. Where diplomacy had failed, the Royal Navy had to succeed. It's one thing declaring a writ that people may no longer profit from the trading of human beings, it's another thing to enforce that. Enter the West African Squad.
Okay.
Look at all the measures it took to ensure this happens. Because people were like, nope, we're not doing it. It's too profitable. The money's too sweet, man. The money is too sweet to let it go. But I'm proud of Brandon for like standing on business. How they talk about standing on business, making sure what I said is going to happen.
What I said is what I said.
Yeah, what I said is what I said. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen.
And I'm like I said, they need to be proud of something like this.
Yes.
You understand?
Definitely.
I really do give them their hats for this.
Yeah.
And it's something to be proud of in history.
Very
that
proud.
they have accomplished. And I don't understand why people are trying to take this from them.
A lot of things are hidden. Truth is hidden.
It is.
A lot of things are hidden.
But as we know, it's always about divide and conquer.
Exactly.
You understand me? Because from the moment I learned this, I showed my kids.
Good. I'm just reminding my brother,
that?
yes.
I showed
They
my
need to
kids.
know.
I said, you guys need to understand this. I know you're doing American history, but this is the line that you need to understand, that this is what took place. And I felt proud in that moment to explain to them that I knew this and I could share this knowledge to them, and they don't grow up blindsided with this part of history. And I'm happy I'm showing it to you.
Yes, thank you.
Because I'm like, I knew you were like me when it come on to this.
Yep. You got that right.
Ooh, it's heavy, but it needs to be out there.
It needs to be out there. Yes.
Man.
Now, you see, I still cannot wrap my mind around the slave trade and it, as much as I am 40-bit, I still cannot wrap. How can a man think that one man is inferior? How can a man think that, okay, he has the authority to take somebody and take them and just sell them because what is man?
The West Africa Squadron was a detachment of the Royal Navy that was given the task of blockading Africa, the continent, to make sure that slave traders were not taking slaves to the Americas.
Wow.
Needless to say, in 1807, there was only a token force performing this operation, comprising of 2 ships. This number was increased to 5 ships until the War of 1812 with the United States. But after 1815, with Britain victorious in Europe and supreme at sea, the Royal Navy turned its attention back to the challenge. The institution of slavery was formally abolished in the British Empire.
I just want to put this in. I cannot think how much that cost them to operate that, and the amount of social, and they had a war going on. They took a break, and then they went right back to it for 14 years.
It cost.
Yes, that's
I'm
money.
going to show another video following up this.
Okay.
I have goosebumps just thinking about it. My tummy is just ripped to shreds. And I feel the same way I did when I just learned this. It's like it cost, but I can't give you away. I can't.
Yeah.
I need you to see for yourself. You'll be like, people have heart, man.
Yeah.
Let me just leave it right
Okay.
there. There's people back then who had a heart. White people. Let me clarify that. Because like I said, the norm, the brainwash was like white people was this. They had a heart. They saw us the way they saw themselves.
Yep.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
In 1833. And by the 1850s, around 25 vessels and 2,000 officers and men were on the station, supported by nearly 1,000 crewmen. Experienced fishermen recruited as sailors from what is now the coast of modern Liberia. It's worth noting that this was not a pleasant job, and the mortality rate was 5 times higher compared with fleets in the Mediterranean or in home waters. To help incentivize the crew, money was actually given to each crew per slave that they freed.
Okay.
But there was a real zeitgeist in Britain for the abolition of slavery. For example, the pursuit and capture of slave ships became celebrated naval engagements, widely reported back in peacetime Britain.
Okay.
They became a source of national pride. So it's no wonder that many of the crews really did have an evangelical zeal about the anti-slavery patrolling.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to give the impression that this was all for humanitarian reasons. There's no doubt that Britain, in her foreign policy, used her anti-slavery laws as a stick with which to beat her opponents, primarily the Spaniards and the Portuguese, who refused to conform to these demands.
Yeah.
Britain demanded Spain, Portugal, and the very new nation of Brazil to declare slave trading to be piracy. And while these nations paid lip service to these principles, they failed to enforce them, which led to a British blockade of Brazil by 1850, which of course...
Can you imagine that? So lip service telling, yes, I'm going to do it. But at the end of the day, you're still carrying on.
Yep.
You're telling me one thing, and then you're doing the opposite behind my back. I didn't even know Brazil was involved in this either,
Yeah, they're big. I know Portugal was huge on Portugal. Very big.
Jeez. But I'm like, yeah.
Forced the nascent Brazilian Empire to capitulate. And it didn't end there. In the 1860s, David Livingstone reports of Arab atrocities against enslaved Africans stirred up the interest of the British public, reviving the flagging abolitionist movement. Throughout the 1870s, the Navy attempted to suppress this abominable Eastern trade at Zanzibar in particular. Needless to say, the British Navy continued their mission against the slavers across the Indian Ocean. The abolition of slavery became the British project. It captured the hearts and minds of the entire country, from the highest lord to the lowest peasant. This is certainly how the British saw it. For example, this spirit of chivalry, we see it in acts of heroism by land and sea in fights against the slave trade. Alfred Tennyson, the unweary, unostentatious, and inglorious crusade of England against slavery may probably be regarded as among the 3 or 4 perfectly virtuous pages comprised in the History of Nations. William Lecky. All of this was done against the vested financial interests of hundreds of thousands of people. Entire nations were against the idea of abolishing slavery and the slave trade.
I gotta be honest, just hearing.
That's why I said I didn't want to give it away. So you heard it. The people back them.
Yes.
From the highest
to the
lowest. Back them because they did not agree with what was going on. And you're going to sit here and tell me and say, as a nation, they shouldn't be proud of something like this.
No, they need to be proud of this. Is something huge.
So I'm going to say, like I said before, I thank you. I salute you. I give you utmost respect, because if it wasn't for them, I can guarantee you will still be in problem with this. I know there's slave trade going on, but putting it into writing, putting it into law, and then taking the necessary steps to go out there on the sea. Remember, these men didn't have real training. These were fishermen.
Yeah.
Is that what it said?
Yeah, fishermen, sailors.
They started off with 5 vessels. Going up against these pirates and all of this stuff to ensure that my brothers and sisters back then.
Yes.
Can you imagine? follow me here. Can you imagine being in one of those boats and you see a ship coming with that British flag,
man.
I have goosebumps in my heart swelling up. But can you imagine how they felt in that moment, knowing that they are going to be okay?
Last smile and tears in their eyes. They know that they're gonna be okay.
God. Just thinking about it, I'm like, in that moment, you're saying to yourself, at least I made it this far.
Yeah.
You weren't thrown off. You didn't pass. And the moment you set your foot on Britain's soil, you're free. Damn. See, they couldn't get no better than that back then. I know. Every time I watch this, that's why I don't want to watch it, because I'm like, how can you just sit there, you take people, you shut them up, you set the condition that you put them in, and then you take them and you work them like a horse. They have no respect, they have no say so, and you think it's okay. I don't understand those people's heart. I can never wrap my mind around it.
No.
And then you want to sit here and point your finger when you're the one freaking doing it as well. It don't make no sense to me.
No.
And then you hide all of this information and point your finger somewhere else. I'm sorry, guys. It's just every time I think about it, I'm like, I know it's the past, but I'm like, dang it,
it still hurts.
Vicious people's heart. It's just cruel.
Yes.
And there's people like this today. They may not doing it up to your face, but they be behind you and their ear. Let's put it that way.
It really is.
The very notion was alien to the human existence until Britain made it happen. In the 19th century, if you saw a ship bearing down on you, flying this flag, and you were a slave trader, you knew that this flag stood for liberty.
Yeah.
This was the flag of a nation that defied human convention for a point of principle and spent its blood, sweat, tears, and treasure to enforce it on the world. This is the flag of the nation that accepted the absolute moral truth that slavery is wrong. No matter what riches can be amassed, no matter what power can be gained, no matter the cost, slavery had to be abolished. That was the British Crusade. When Britain held the reins of world power, that is what she did with it. So, Frankie, to be honest with you, when you say we have streets named after slave owners, we have profited from a vile crime and feel no shame, it is British people that don't learn languages or British history. Britain is the true scrounger, the true criminal. I have to concur. British people apparently do not learn British history because Britain's involvement in the slave trade is one of the most proud moments any nation could have had in their history. I want to make one thing crystal clear, Frankie. You live in a world without slavery because of Britain.
I know that's right.
I love how he explained that. I love it, especially with the flag. And I just want to thank Xavier, because the way Xavier just pictured, the way she has a gift of just like making you picture it, the way you're describing that flag and how the people felt, I could literally see that. Because you have that gift. You can make us picture what you're talking. And I could imagine and like see that. And that got you emotional. That got me emotional seeing you crying. Because this it touches the heart. It really does. And I really got to give my hats off to Britain because I did not know that. Thank you for abolishing slavery. And I love the person who created this video, the classy response. Because he read that person to the filth. He read him and taught him his history. Because I didn't know that. And I'm thank you for learning. I'm so thankful to know that. So thankful. So thankful.
You said it all. It just, like I said, I literally can't wrap my mind around it. But I am thankful because if Britain didn't do you and I, like he said to Frankie, you gotta be happy.
Yeah,
because this, and I said it earlier, we still be in some deep water going on. It may not be as rigid as it was then, but you and I couldn't be sitting here doing all of this. No. And for everything that Britain has done, when you think about it, they have changed the world with so many, everything from inventions to slave trade, from abolishing the slave trade. The imprint that they had put on this world should be celebrated. That's just how I see it. You cannot use the bad that they have done to overlook all the good that they have elevated to after everything. Because they saw their mistake and they mended it.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
For 14 years. And no other country stepped in, which is crazy.
Exactly.
14 years?
And when I saw those 14 years, it reminded me of the Blitz. How they fought by themselves for so long without anybody stepping in.
Britain is a whole nother breed. Y'all are bad. I can't say the word because of YouTube, but y'all are bad.
And that's why I tell you, my respects for Britain is on another level. From the moment I started learning about Britain, the UK, let me put it that way, not just say Britain, but you guys understand what I mean.
Yeah.
I fell in love with what I was learning. And then as the more I dived in and then started interacting with people from there, my love has just grown tremendously. And I literally wish I could pick up my kids and just move there right now. Cornwall, to be exact.
Oh, she knows where exactly.
I gotta show you why.
Oh, I love this. I gotta know why.
I'm smiling now because, like I said, I have no ill will towards the past. The past is just past, but it still hurts. You know what I mean? It still hurts. And I'm happy that you guys was like, go ahead and show Cynthia the reaction that you did to it. Because the video, it does not exist anymore. The owner of it took it down. And I'm like,
don't know why. It's a good video.
Yeah. I'm like, why would I show Cynthia what I reacted to? I don't watch my video. It's weird. But sitting here with her and showing her and hearing and seeing her reaction, I'm like, she's learning and she's been in the moment that how I was when I just learned about it. I'm happy for that. So somebody else knows the truth. We love you guys. Thank you so much for rocking with us, for supporting us as a small channel. I know it's a lot to give us of your time, and we really appreciate it. And for the amazing feedbacks that you guys give us in the comment section, you guys are the best. That's all I can say. So with that said, we're gonna run out of here. Ooh, we're looking cute.
Oh, we're
cutesy. We love you. Be good. Be kind. Continue to love each other, and please don't change. Be feisty the way that you are. Stay in your element the way that you are, because you guys are a different breed of people, and I love that. We all can't be the same.
Nope.
We'll chat till thy kingdom come. So with that said, she pointed her finger at me because yes, I will. Because I get comfortable in my skin. I'm in my element. Love you guys, and we'll definitely see you guys in another one.
Bye.